Okay, so the TTIP is the Transatlantic Investment Partnership treaty that the EU and the United States have been negotiating since 2013, and it's called a trade agreement or free trade agreement. It might sound very technical and something to do only with customs and such things that are seen as traditional barriers to trade. But this time, this agreement is very ambitious and it's very wide. Why is it a threat to alcohol policy and to tobacco policy as well? The reason is very clear because we can already see that this kind of trade agreements have been used against health measures in different countries, and it's mostly because this TTIP will have something called investment protection system, which means that if a country is going to change laws concerning alcohol or tobacco, the company can claim that their business will be harmed, and they can ask from the government to have compensations of these law amendments. And we have already seen that the tobacco companies have sued countries huge sums of money because the countries have wanted to protect their people and their health. And what is very worrying is that this, when there will be this kind of disagreement, it will not be taken into the court, but instead it will be taken into this panel of 3 international lawyers that will discuss themselves what shall be done. So it's outside the democratic control, and it's not because usually when you go to the court you have law books and you have to be very precise what are you doing and why, but this is more like these lawyers have very wide principles that they can interpret the way they want, and it's when we have seen these kind of cases what has happened. So it's a very strange system, and this can harm the health policy of countries. And for example, if we look at Finland, I think we will not possibly see so many cases taken into this arbitration, which means the panel of 3 lawyers, but it's more like the companies, like alcohol companies or tobacco companies, can say, if Finland plans, for example, to hire to alcohol taxes, they can say, like, fine, you can do this, but see you in court or see you in this arbitration that you will pay us. And this is called this chilling effect that this kind of the investment protection will have. So it's very difficult to change the laws in the future. And also it's not just the investment protection that is the threat. There is also something called regulatory cooperation that is going to be in this TTIP, and it means that if Finland is planning to change laws, for example in alcohol, they will need to consult the government of the USA and also the companies in USA beforehand, and this will and there will be created this regulatory cooperation body, which is a new form of this kind of body that or a committee. And in this committee, these plans will be dealt before they are in the Parliament of Finland. So this will change very much how we can make laws in Finland. And for example, also this regulatory cooperation body will give a lot of more influence to the industry, and less and less, there will be less and less power in the democratic institutions. So this is a threat for the health policy.
Do you see that they can challenge also already existing laws, for instance the monopoly system in Nordic countries?
Yes, this is probably because when they're talking about this, what we know that what is planned in this regulatory cooperation body is that originally they talked about harmonization of laws, but because this doesn't sound so nice when we think about, for example, food security in EU or the United States, because there's a difference, they didn't want to talk anymore of this, but now they talk about this regulatory cooperation. And it's said that they can also, it's been speculated that they will slowly start to harmonize these things, and also the monopolies will be probably questions in these processes.
So far, when we think of European Union and also I understand other WTO trade agreements.
Yeah.
It seems, at least in theory, that public health arguments are protected in a way.
Yeah, but for example, if we talk about public services, it's said that these agreements will not concern public services, which are usually they are built to protect the health of the people, for example, hospitals and so on. So it's said that the public services are not in these agreements, and this is to say because, for example, in UK there has been a lot of discussion what will happen to the national healthcare system, which has been very people-friendly in the future. It's not so sure, because in this trade agreement, what is meant with the public services, it's becoming more and more narrow all the time. So it might be that actually public services only needs police or such institutions, but not healthcare systems. And because healthcare in Finland, for example, nowadays it's much also done in the markets. So we buy from these buy services, and in this case the TTIP would have an effect. And for example, if some kind of law in Finland, for example, concerning how many nurses you must have for grannies in these houses, if this kind of law is changed, then the international companies that already are in Finland, they can also question this kind of amendment and say, yes, you can do it, but you must pay us. So it's it's a big issue, and this, what we have heard and seen so far, it hasn't convinced the people that the health is protected enough. So, for example, with this, when we think about, if we think how would we make TTIP health friendly or health friendlier, then it should be that the social and healthcare services should be excluded for sure, and this should be done explicitly. Like now we know that the audiovisual services is excluded from the TTIP because France wants to protect its film industry. So that's why we know that the French, in this sense, or we are all, this area is not covered in TTIP, but we haven't seen that the health services and social services are excluded. So that's why it should be done explicitly. And also the investment protection system is something that should be taken away from it. And it's also because we don't know, the world is not ready. So we have to change the laws all the time. And with this investment protection, it will become really, really difficult. And we haven't heard anything that, for example, tobacco or alcohol would be excluded. Though they do say that, for example, Finland or any other European country, they are free to change the laws. But this sentence is not completed, because when you complete the sentence, it says something like Finland or whatever country can change the laws in a way that does not harm the markets in an unnecessary way or such. And then you have to be really careful, because how it's that interpreted.
Could you describe a little bit the process? I mean,
yeah.
As it is so important, you would expect that, I don't know, referendums would take place in member states, and or what is the power of the member states in EU? Can Finland, can Sweden, can we say something about that?
Yeah, that's not been so clear. For example, I asked here in Finland the European Commission's and the Parliament's office of this, how shall it be decided, and it took like maybe a month to get the right answer. So there is a little bit controversy of how shall it be done, but who will decide at the end of the day. But then, for example, the Finnish government have started, they always say in their official papers that Finland considers this as a mixed agreement, and then it means that this have to be approved in every member state also. And that's what we believe now, that every country has a right to decide at the end, but only at the end of the negotiations. So then it will be yes or no, but no amendment made so far. And also, of course, Finland and every other country is involved in the negotiations. So we know persons in Finland who, for example, who are negotiating TTIP and also the other free trade agreements. But there are certain civil servants who usually have a very mostly like more commercial background or international trade background. So how well is for example, the social and health ministers involved in this? So that might be a little bit less. But Finland can influence all the time, But as we know from Finland and maybe some other countries, the discussion has not been so lively, and even the politicians are not aware of this. I was in one seminar actually, where there was one member of the Finnish parliament, and he's he has worked there very long, and then I brought up this problem that people don't know of this TTIP, and also that the members of the parliament don't know. And he just said that it is like this, they don't know, they just don't know. So he confessed that not even the members of the parliament are aware of these issues.
What do you see what civil society, what NGOs can do? Because quite often, from media you hear different organizations raising head, and there are demonstrations and so on, but it does seem that from the alcohol advocates among our organizations, could we do something more?
Yes, I think the organizations, NGOs, have a very important role in bringing this TTIP. And in a way it's more easier because we usually have some kind of issue that we are specialized in. It might be alcohol or the nature or the work laws or whatever. And because this will influence so much, so we could have a discussion from different aspects of TTIP, for example from this health aspect or alcohol aspect. So we can bring this up, that they say that there is something like TTIP and what might be the outcome of it, and then we can help the public to know more about this, but also the politicians who might not be so very well aware of the TTIP, or if they are aware of it, they might consider it just as a trade issue and they don't see the threat to democracy.
What is the timeline? Can you go with at least what you know? When should it be finalized? When should it be decided?
Yes, it was the original plan should have been that the TTIP should be finished at the end of this year, but just recently the Commissioner Malmström said or admitted that it will not be ready at the end of this year. And why it should have been ready is that because there will be presidential elections in the USA, so the Obama period is finishing now, and then there will be a lot of political confusion and this kind of thing. So that's why they wanted to have it done before this. But because this is such a huge thing, there are so many things that it's depending on it. So at the moment, those people who are watching this free trade agenda, they are now watching they're seeing what is happening in the USA, because Obama wants to get so-called fast track. So he wants to have permission to negotiate or decide on this free trade agreement alone without the Congress. And we don't know at the moment will he get it. And if he will get it, then TTIP is more likely to happen. But if he doesn't get it, then it also could mean that there is not so much possible that TTIP will happen. And I think TTIP is mostly about, I would say, that they want to stop the regulation that is stopping the business to do maximum profit. And why do we have that regulation? Is that people and the environment needs to be protected. So that's, I think, the core of TTIP is deregulation, and then possibly re-regulation, making laws more business friendly.
From the public health perspective that you are also working with, do you see any positive sides of the TTIP?
Well, there are these traditional barriers to trade. For example, in some customs, although in general the customs are very small already, so there might be some small branches, for example, in the export of health equipments that might benefit a little bit. But then when we see these gains, and we can think that it will build the Finnish economy, but actually the overall expectation of this TTIP is actually very, very small. So I think this might solve some small problems, real problems for some companies in Finland, But these kind of problems could be dealt other ways without taking this humongous risk that we are now taking. So if we look at the big picture in the health, it will definitely not have benefit.